The wind of the Montana Territory didn't just blow, it attacked. It came down in wild white waves, screaming across the frozen land like it wanted to bury everything that dared to live. Olivia Rosemont fought to stay upright as the blizzard clawed at her thin coat and stung her skin like needles. She couldn't see the sky or the ground. The world had turned into a swirling wall of snow that tried to pull her under with every step. Her horse Patches stumbled again. She pulled hard on the reins, but the tired bay dropped to its knees and crashed into the drift. Olivia was thrown forward, the snow swallowed her whole. Cold fear shot through her body as she pushed herself up. She crawled to Patches, her hands shaking so badly she could barely touch him. His leg was twisted wrong. He wasn't getting up. No, please no, she whispered. Her voice broke into the storm like a weak spark swallowed by darkness. Patches gave one last groan. Olivia pressed her forehead to his neck, letting the truth crush her. She was alone in one of the worst storms the territory had seen in years, alone with no direction, alone with the cold closing around her like a fist. She forced herself to stand. Every bone in her body hurt. Her breath froze in the air. Her boots sank deep into the snow. She had left Boston with the last of her parents' inheritance and a letter from a great uncle she never met. That letter had promised safety, a new beginning, redemption. Instead, she had found a nightmare that looked ready to swallow her alive. One step, then another. Her mind drifted in and out as the bitter air numbed her lungs. She started to fall asleep on her feet, her thoughts sliding away like melting ice. Then she heard it. A deep thudding, slow, heavy, steady hoof beat-ats. A shape appeared through the white, big, dark, moving toward her with purpose. Her heart struggled to believe it wasn't a trick. The shape grew into a man on a massive black horse. Snow clung to his coat and hat. His shoulders looked carved from stone. He pulled the horse to a stop right in front of her. "You picked a bad day to die, ma'am," he said. His voice was low and rough like gravel. Olivia blinked at him, her jaw frozen shut. He saw everything, the shaking, the soaked clothes, the fading strength, and moved without hesitation. He swung off the horse, lifted her chin, and checked her eyes. "Where's your horse?" he asked. She pointed back through the storm, fell. She managed to say. He didn't waste words. He grabbed a thick wool blanket from his saddle and wrapped it around her shoulders.
The warmth hit her like fire. She gasped. "Can you ride?" he asked. She nodded even though she wasn't sure. Her legs felt numb. Her hands didn't feel like hands anymore. "In front," he said as he mounted again.
"Come on, hold tight." He reached down and pulled her up with surprising gentleness. She slid into the saddle in front of him, her back leaning into his chest. His arm came around her waist like iron, steady and strong. The heat from his body was overwhelming. "Name's Cold Barrett," he said against the howl of the wind. "My ranch is the only shelter for miles." She pressed her head back against him, too tired to hold it up. "Olivia Rosemont," she whispered. He stiffened. He didn't speak again. Only the sound of the horse pushing through the storm and the creak of cold leather filled the air. Olivia fought to stay awake, but the rhythm of his breathing and the dull warmth of his coat pulled her under. When she opened her eyes again, they were riding into a wide yard filled with buildings buried in snow. A large log house stood strong against the storm. Smoke rose from its chimney. Light glowed through the windows. He lifted her off the horse and carried her inside. The blast of heat nearly made her faint. The fire in the great stone hearth roared like life itself. An older man with a thick white mustache rushed over. "Boss, where'd you find her?" he asked. "Northage," Cole answered as he set her down, half frozen. The older man hurried off to get broth while the warmth hit Olivia like a wave. Her body shook violently as feeling returned to her feet. Cole knelt in front of her and worked at her boots, his hands firm and steady. When he saw how blue her toes were, something flashed in his eyes, something like fear. "You said you were going to Jonathan Rosemont's place," he said quietly. "Nobody told me what?" she asked. He met her eyes. "He's dead, Miss Rosemont." The words crushed her like a blow. Her only hope gone, her great uncle gone, everything she came west for gone. A tear slid down her cheek and froze there. Cole stood towering over her, storms not easing up. He said, "You can stay till it breaks." She nodded, not trusting her voice. As Gus brought her hot broth, Olivia clutched the mug with shaking hands. Cole turned to walk outside again, but she called after him, her voice breaking. "Mr. Barrett, I have nowhere else to go. I don't want charity. I can work. I'll cook, clean, anything, please." He stopped. His shoulders rose and fell as he breathed out slowly. "This ain't a charity house," he said. Her heart dropped, but then he turned toward her. "You can stay. Gus will find you a room and some dry clothes." She exhaled in pure relief. Later that night, wearing dry clothes that belonged to Cole's late wife, she stood in the doorway of the guest room with fear rising in her chest. She had never been this alone, never felt this lost. Her voice shook as she confessed, "I've never shared a bed. I've never done anything like this. I'm scared." Cole froze. He stood slowly, his pale gray eyes locked on hers with an intensity that made her breath catch. Then he walked right up to her, stopping only inches away. His voice was low, final, certain. "Then share mine forever." Olivia's breath caught in her chest. Coleret's words felt like a blow and a lifeline at the same time. The fire crackled behind him, throwing warm light across his face, but his eyes were hard as steel. He wasn't teasing, he wasn't asking, he was stating something solid as the mountains outside. She opened her mouth, but nothing came out. Cole stepped back, letting the heat of the moment settle. "I'm not talking about sharing a bed in that way," he said, his voice rough but steady. "I'm talking about a roof, a name, a place where no man can claim you or take what's yours." She swallowed hard. Why would you offer that to me?" His jaw tightened. "Because a woman traveling alone in this territory won't last. And because your uncle's land borders mine, he and I did business. He was a fair man." Good. He'd want you safe. Olivia didn't know if she felt relief or fear, maybe both, but deep down something in her believed him. Something in her trusted this man who had pulled her from the jaws of a blizzard. 2 weeks later, after the storm melted into muddy spring ground, Cole kept his vow. The wedding took place in the sheriff's office in the dusty little town of Redemption. Olivia wore her one good dress. Cole wore a clean shirt. Gus stood beside them as a witness. The judge mumbled through the vows in a voice that smelled of whiskey. When he pronounced them man and wife, Cole didn't kiss her. He only nodded once and guided her outside. Whispers followed them all the way to their horses. On the ride back to the ranch, the air between them felt strange and heavy. Olivia looked at the mountains glowing orange in the afternoon sun and wondered what kind of life she had just agreed to. When they got home, Cole carried her small to the master bedroom. The heavy wooden bed seemed like it belonged to another world, one where she didn't belong. "You take the bed," Cole said quietly. "I'll sleep in my study." He walked away before she could answer. And that was how their marriage began. In the following weeks, Olivia worked from sunrise to sundown. She scrubbed floors, cooked meals, tended the small garden, and helped Gus with whatever he needed. She forced her soft hands to harden. She forced her fear to quiet. She forced herself to be useful. Cole, meanwhile, became a shadow moving through the house. He left early, returned late, and spoke little, but she felt his presence everywhere, in the way the men respected her, in the steadisupplies Gus said Cole ordered, in the occasional small kindness he tried to hide. And sometimes she caught him looking at her, quickly turning away when their eyes met. One late afternoon, trouble arrived, wearing dirty boots and a cruel smile. Hank Dawson. He swaggered into the great room with 2 ranch hands behind him. He smelled like tobacco and trouble. Olivia felt the hair rise on the back of her neck. "Well now," Dawson said slowly, letting his gaze slide over her. Barrett sure knows how to pick him." Before she could react, Cole stepped between them so fast she didn't see him move. His voice was low, dangerous. "The last time you looked at my wife like that, Dawson, you lost a tooth. Want to lose another?" Dawson backed up, but his glare promised the matter wasn't done. Cole didn't look at Olivia afterward. He only walked outside without another word. Still, something inside her warmed, but the peace didn't last. One warm afternoon in town, Olivia was leaving the general store when a stranger stepped in front of her. He was dressed in a fine black suit and wore a bowler hat. His smile was thin and sharp. "Miss Rosemont," he said softly, "we've been looking for you." Fear shot through her. He ignored the wedding band on her finger. "Mr. Monroe wants you brought home. He's very upset you ran away." Her blood turned cold. She stepped back, but the man moved with her. Before he could touch her, a voice thundered from the street. "If you lay a hand on my wife, I'll bury you right where you stand." Cole Barrett sat on his black horse, a rifle resting across his lap, pointed straight at the stranger. Nobody doubted he'd use it. The man backed off immediately, his confidence crumbling. Cole never took his eyes off him. "One," he said. The two strangers looked at each other, then hurried off before he reached two. Olivia stood frozen, her heart pounding. Cole dismounted and walked toward her. His face was stoned, but fury burned behind his eyes. "Get on your horse," he said. "We're going home." The ride back was silent, painfully silent. Inside the ranch house, Cole finally turned to her. "Who is Layla Monroe?" he demanded. Her secret exploded out. Everything she had run from, every fear, every threat. He paced the room like a storm. "So you dragged this trouble here," he said, "and you didn't think to tell me." "I wasn't trying to hurt you," Olivia cried. "I was ashamed. You brought danger to my door," he snapped, "to my men, to this ranch, and you said nothing." The words cut deeper than the cold ever had. "Do you want me to leave?" she asked. He stopped walking. The anger in his eyes shifted into something darker, something lost. "I don't know," he said, and that was worse than any shout. 2 days later, everything exploded again. Olivia rode up the mountain to check on the sheep. She didn't see the 3 riders until they were circling her. Hank, Dawson, and the 2 hired thugs from town. "Sign this deed," Dawson said, holding out papers. "Sell your uncle's land. Make it easy." "I will never sign that," she said, her voice shaking but strong. Dawson snarled and reached for her res. She spun her horse and fled down the narrow trail. They chased her, shouting. A pistol was raised, then a rifle cracked. Dawson's hat flew off his head. Cole's voice boomed from the ridge. "The next bullet goes through your skull." The men fled. Cole scrambled down the rocks and rushed to Olivia. His hands grabbed her shoulders. "Are you hurt? Did they touch you?" "No," she whispered. He pulled her against him, holding her like he had almost lost her. "Damn you," he breathed, his voice shaking. "Damn you for making me care this much." Something broke open between them, something deep, frightening, and real. This marriage wasn't convenient anymore. It was becoming everything. The valley felt different after that day. The air was sharp with danger, but something else lived beneath it, something alive, something new. Cole and Olivia moved around each other with a strange mix of fear and closeness, like 2 people standing on the edge of something that could save them or break them completely. But the danger didn't wait. 2 mornings later, a rider from town brought news that froze Olivia's blood. Leland Monroe had arrived in Redemption. He didn't come quietly. He came with money, fine clothes, and a cruel smile. He came with men carrying rifles. He came with the confidence of someone who thought the world belonged to him, and he wasn't hiding while he was there. He wanted Olivia back. He wanted her land, and he wanted Cole Barrett crushed. Cole stood on the porch, staring toward the valley, jaw tight, shoulders squared like a man preparing for a war he didn't start, but would finish. Gus came up beside him. Dawson and Monroe were seen meeting in the saloon. He said, "Town's nervous. Those city boys ain't here for talk." Cole didn't answer. Olivia stepped outside, her hands trembling. She looked at Cole's back. He didn't turn to her. "You're not facing them alone," she said. "You shouldn't have to face this at all," he answered quietly. His voice wasn't angry this time. It was full of something heavier, fear. They barely slept that night. The next day, shadows spread across the valley like spilled ink. Dorson and Monroe began buying supplies, hiring drifters, spreading lies. Olivia's name was dragged through the streets. Cole's honor was questioned, and worst of all, their ranch was slowly being cut off, piece by piece. The breaking point came when Molly rode out to the ranch just before sunrise, her hair wild, her voice breathless. "They're damming the river today," she gasped. "Dawson, Monroe, and half their hired guns. They're riding out to the Little Horn at first light." Cole didn't hesitate. He grabbed his rifle. "Gus, round up the men." Olivia stepped forward. "What do we do?" Cole looked at her, really looked at her. Then he made a decision that changed everything. "We're ending this," he said, "all of it." Before dawn, Cole, Olivia, Gus, and the ranch hands rode into redemption. Instead of going to the creek, they went straight to Sheriff Miller's office. The sheriff barely had time to light his lantern before Cole stepped inside. "You ready to arrest a rich man?" Cole asked. "Depends." Miller said. "You got proof?" Olivia stepped forward and placed a leather-bound ledger on the desk. "This is my father's account book," she said. "Leland Monroe was stealing from him for years. He forged signatures, altered numbers. This shows everything." Miller's eyes widened as he flipped through the pages. "Fraud," he muttered, "embezzlement, interstate theft. This will bring federal marshals." They didn't have long to celebrate. The office door burst open. Monroe's hired men, Mr. Jones and Mr. Peters, stormed in with guns drawn. The book one barked, "Hand it over." Before the sheriff could react, Cole kicked the desk forward, slamming it into both men. Gus shoved the bar across the door. Bullets shattered the windows. Smoke filled the office as Cole fired back. When it was over, the two hired guns were on the floor and Cole had a bullet wound in his arm, but the ledger, their only leverage, was safe. Miller grabbed his shotgun. "Let's go arrest Monroe." They rode to the Little Horn Creek just as Monroe and Dawson started building their illegal dam. The sound of axes and shouted orders filled the valley. Miller raised his voice. "Leland Monroe, you're under arrest for fraud, embezzlement, and attempted murder." Monroe spun around shocked. His face turned gray. Dawson's confidence melted. Even his hired guns backed away. Seeing the situation collapse, Monroe went for his last desperate move. He pulled a small derringer from his pocket and aimed it at Olivia. Cole didn't think. He fired before Monroe's finger even tightened. The derringer flew from Monroe's hand as he screamed, clutching his shattered wrist. Dawson disarmed himself and lifted both hands. "I ain't hanging for this fool," he muttered. The fight was over. The war ended, and the valley, for the first time in months, felt like it could breathe. When Cole walked toward Olivia, his arm bleeding, she ran to him. "You're hurt," she whispered. "Not as bad as I would have been if he got that shot off," he said, his voice rough but soft. "I wasn't going to let him take you. The sheriff and townspeople rounded up the criminals, but Olivia only saw Cole, strong, tired, wounded, and hers." A few weeks later, peace returned, the ranch healed. Dawson fled the territory. Monroe sat in a jail cell, awaiting a federal trial, and Core returned to being the man who took care of everything but himself. One warm evening, with the sun melting behind the mountains, Cole found Olivia on the porch. A wire came from Cheyenne. He said, "Your family's company in Boston. It's safe. The lawyers cleared your name. Everything's yours now. You could leave Montana if you wanted." Olivia looked out across the land she had nearly died to reach, the land where she had found purpose, safety, and him. "This is my home," she said softly. Cole swallowed hard. Relief washed over his face. He stepped closer. I have something I need to say. She turned to him, heart pounding. The day I found you in that storm, I didn't just happen upon you, he said. I heard a Roseman woman was coming west, and when that blizzard hit, I knew no one could survive it. I went out searching for you, she gasped. You came for me. I did, he said quietly, not out of honor, not out of duty. I did it because I didn't want another grave on this land. I did it because something in me pulled me toward you. Tears filled her eyes, and my proposal, Cole continued, it wasn't just to protect you. It was because after Mary died, this house felt dead, and when you came, it felt alive again. Olivia pressed her hand to her mouth, trying to steady her shaking breath. Cole took her hands in his. I asked you once to share my life out of necessity, he said. Now I'm asking for the right reasons. He stepped closer, eyes soft and full of hope. Olivia Barrett, will you share my life, my heart, my bed as my true wife? She reached up and touched his cheek. I've never shared a bed, she whispered again, but this time her voice was warm, brave, certain. Cole smiled, then share mine forever. He pulled her into a kiss, a deep, strong, life-changing kiss that carried every vow spoken in fear and every promise made in the storm. The cold that once tried to kill her had led her to the man who would spend a lifetime keeping her warm. And in the heart of the Montana Territory, the rancher and the woman he found in a blizzard built a home stronger than steel and twice as fierce as the West itself.